Welcome to the last 20 days of 2020 with mtk. Yes, I am MTK on the MIC. Reminding you, a diarist journaling is not a journalist. This is a new program. This show is called The Last 20 Days of 2020. There will be 20 episodes. Today is episode 1. Welcome. I'm your host, MTK. It is 8:20 in the morning in California. Love you, California. Yay, area. And 11:20 in the morning in New York. But across the pond, they're lucky because they've already gotten there, haven't they? Oi, mate! Fire it up, man. It's 4:20 in London, isn't it, after all? This show will start every day at 20 past the hour, wherever you are. Oh, except India, of course, which has that half-hour jig right in the middle, doesn't it? Where it'll start at 10 minutes to 10 o'clock at night. To all my beloved friends and family in India. So we're just going to talk about the end of the year, what has been a pretty crazy year. And I'm going to read a few things and have a few different topics that we can discuss as we go through the last 20 days of 2020. You know, the election dominated the year. If we exclude the virus. And that is something that always happens when it's an election year, if you think about it, right? Like, this country has now become this circus of kind of a facade for democracy that's troubling because it doesn't educate people. It sort of just keeps this ongoing. I mean, what do you call it? I don't even know what it is. A circus. And we don't seem to progress, which is something that I think many people feel frustration with right now. And I've been thinking that perhaps one of the problems is that we don't have a voice of reason at the moment. One of the reasons for that is that the current and soon-to-be leaving resident of the White House has whipped us into a frenzy as part of his style, as part of his approach to this whole thing. And now we need to ramp back down. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that. I know that when I look at Twitter and when I look at the news and when I listen to people on the radio and as I hear things going on, there is a lot of fatigue from the election. It's an election that seems like it's never going to end. Now, this exact same feeling occurred for us in the year 2000. You have to understand. And again, we're eliminating COVID from this discourse for a moment. We're talking about civic space, in particular, how it's been changed, if you will, by the 45th president in a way that has been very frustrating for a lot of people, except his, followers and supporters who are just on the. They seem to be going on the ride, unwilling to even, listen to anything because they're so fully and totally loyal to this figurehead. Without getting into what for or why, I think we need to think about what that means. That means that the next few weeks, like in 2000, are going to be tense weeks. I can remember in 2000, I was working for George magazine in the heart of New York. Everybody was like, wait, what? How? Florida, what? What's happening? And then the Chads, and then the whole discussion, and then Karl Rove's all this stuff going on. In fact, I wrote a piece for George. You can see it's online at 3 in the morning on election night. I remember because in the morning they were going to be hearing cases, right? And so nobody knew who these judges were nationwide. Maybe they knew them in Florida, but they didn't know them anywhere else. So I wrote a piece describing who the judge would be, who would be hearing the first case in the morning after the election, contesting votes in Florida. And I put the piece up. I remember it went up at around 10 a.m. on the internet, but I had been writing it all night. Several of the editorial staff of the magazine, we were all watching the results at the publisher's house, the editor-in-chief's house, I should say. And we were like, what is happening? So we ran back to the office and we worked all night. And we were active for that whole period. Now, I'm telling the story because if you're a right-winger or if you're a Trump supporter, you have to understand that a lot of us know what this feels like. We've gone through it, right? We've gone through this notion that the election is fixed or the elections are fixed. We've gone through this notion that things are rigged. We've gone through this notion many times that our votes are not being counted, that democracy here is a somewhat farcical exercise given the amount of lip service it's given abroad in talking about the USA as a free country in the history of humankind, shall we say. Sorry for that. So we've been there. We know exactly where you are. Now, the difference between us and you is, I think, kind of fascinating because it also is summed up in the basest level of how communication goes between right and left in the USA today. You're a cuck, you're a libtard, you're a snowflake. That all that language of softness toward us and toughness toward them. I don't need to wear a mask. I have good genetics. Hey man, nobody around me is getting sick. I'm not getting sick. Tough guy sort of thing on the other side is all, kind of ridiculous, right? Feeding into that duality is a mistake, just like feeding into the duality of there only being two parties has been an immense and stupid mistake. We've had many, many parties in the past before, commonly, right? We've had 7 parties, I think as many as 8. That's how it ought to be, along with proportional representation. The trouble is now this right-wing group for whom a certain amount of race relations is being put into this, a certain amount of white supremacy, city on the hill stuff is being put into this about, no, we're not going to pay reparations. We're not going to apologize for the enslavement of black folk. We're not going to apologize for the invention of the police or the way that they police things. Everything we've come to this point is because white folks came here, we killed the people, we took the land, we made the laws, we made everything, and we want to make sure that it stays clear to everyone that what we've made is the greatest country in the world, and no one can really prevent us from that claim. The claim to the land, the claim to the actions is what made the greatest country in the world. And each of these things you're asking us to do, this, reparations, or admit that our police are out of control and violent, way beyond necessary towards specific groups of communities, people, because of the way they were made and so on, to deny the slavery connection, to deny the post-slavery Jim Crow, etc. All of that is what we're facing now. And Trump manifested that and is attempting to manifest that. But we're all Americans, and this is a mistake. So I don't know, well, we got off on a tangent here this morning, but I was going to start talking about the news. Let's give a listen to this song. Oh, it's not up yet. This is just the dub version of our song that'll happen at the break. So we have the cabinet. I mean, I don't know what Joe Biden is doing. Vilsack? Are you kidding me? That's just a huge mistake. There's a lot of clapback going on. In the Washington Post this morning, there's talk about Biden building a team for his cabinet of longtime allies. But guess what? That's that same Clinton crowd, that same Obama crowd. The young people who turned up in mass to the farce of the Democratic primaries and the way Bernie Sanders was robbed. You know, again, I'm a neutral in this. I'm trying to look at it for the way we're doing it. And to have Biden win the way he is, and then to have a guy like Vilsack show up and call the progressive left children need to shut up and sit down, frustrating. President-elect Joe Biden did add Dennis McDonough and Susan Rice to his governing team, Obama-era figures. He's going to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs, McDonough, which was like shocking, immediately raised alarms to lots of veterans groups because McDonough has never served. Rice was, of course, the National Security Advisor under Obama, Director of Domestic Policy Council. He's trying, they're saying, not to run into trouble there with confirmation. So we're looking at that. There's news all over the country. All kinds of things are going on. This is the first episode. There's 20 days left in 2020, folks. That's kind of all this show is about right now. There are 20 days left. Today, there's 20 days left in this year. And this program's just going to be kind of looking at the news, talking about things. It's all going to shit now. And you never say a word. All together now for the chorus. Elections are fixed. The wars are endless. The surveillance is total at you. Never said a word. Who am I talking to in this song? Rich Democrats who don't want to listen to progressives for 27 years, maybe? I don't know. Republicans, certainly. Tell you, you're just going to be silent as things break down is not tenable, folks. We can't continue like this. I, MTK, on the MIC. For the next 20 days, I'm going to be discussing that and a lot of different matters here on the last days of 2020 with MT Carthy. In today's program, and I'm going to be cutting this out later to put as a separate chunk, if you will, so I hope you guys don't mind. Today, I want to talk about something as a plea, if you will. I'd like to make a plea to some very specific people. All right, and those people are the baseball writers of America and the voters for the Hall of Fame, the so-called Hall of Fame. It's really not a Hall of Fame. How can it be a Hall of Fame when the greatest contact hitter in the game is not in it, and the greatest power hitter in the game is not in it? We're dealing with a very specific kind of a problem here that everybody, just like we were talking about in politics a moment ago, everybody is trapped in a dual thing where the two ends are very, very loud. This crew of older folks from the 20th century, like me, who want to keep the all steroid users out, are screwing up one of the very specific points of this whole thing. Do you know what a diva is? You know, we throw the word diva around. Oh, he's a diva. She's a diva. He's a diva, you know. A diva, if you think about it, is a opera singer, right? And they act however they act because we all want to go there and sit, and for them to go up there and be able to perform in this way that is far above us in terms of just beauty, art, sound, etc. They have to act a little crazy, it turns out, right? This is kind of a thing that we realized about, you know, certain types of performers. We call them divas, right? And if a diva is white, they get one kind of treatment. If a diva is Latino, they get another. If a diva is black, they get another in our country. You'll note that this is related to how much people like or dislike them, or how much they use them as an identity, right? An identity that they can stick into their arguments against others or for others. I was thinking about that the other day, and I came up with something. Identity politics is not always hollow, okay? But it is always transparent once you see it for what it is, right? And I'm trying to talk to you guys and women because I really want you to vote for Barry Bonds. Barry Lamar Bonds on the 11th, I think it was. Let's check the date of that real quick. Barry Lamar Bonds, the only thing he was convicted of, okay, the obstruction of justice charge, the only thing he was convicted of, all right, that was thrown out. The only one charge that he was convicted of, which was an obstruction of justice charge from way back in 2008, that was thrown out. The appeals court overturned it on April 22nd of 2015. So let's just start there, right? Let's start with our justice system. Now, you all may talk all you want about how different his body looked, or about him taking stuff from Balco or the Clear or whatever, but the facts are these. Two specific points that were made, right? One, whatever he took in an era when everybody was taking everything was not illegal when he took it. It was not illegal when he took it. This means a lot. And we could get into the arguments of these folks who want to continually say, yeah, but that's because he paid his buddies to go to jail. None of that matters. We have a justice system for a reason, you know? So the second part of that is the thing that he took, it was in an era when, as we all know, the game had gotten exploded to this height because of juicing, not because the players, but because management and owners and fans and everybody looked the other way. It reminds me of how cocaine was in the 80s, right? I mean, everybody just kind of went, because they wanted to see this stuff. And here I have to talk as a Giants fan to you. We know we're hated. I know that the San Francisco Giants have a small, cultish maybe, but I consider them beautiful fan group because we have long history. We all remember it. We teach the history to our kids. We love our relationship with the Dodgers, for example, because of that. Our first game with them being in the late 1800s is one of the great rivalries in all of baseball. What I don't like is what's happened since the steroid era and the social media era, and that is that we've been dragging all of this into the mud. There's no reason to do that. The practical reality is Barry Lamar Bonds is the greatest power hitter to ever swing a baseball bat, and it's not close. Barry Lamar Bonds could easily be elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame purely on the merits of the years before any of these accusations even become relevant. The records for Barry Lamar Bonds are significant as a baseball player, and who he is as a man are what is making all of this very complicated. He was a diva. He didn't even have that many friends among us as fans or among the writers or the media in the Bay Area because he was so isolated and angry about so many things with regard to much larger issues than you could possibly perceive. In his mind, as he's going for it, he's thinking about the death threats that Hank Aaron received. You don't think his godfather, Willie Mays, or his father, Bobby Bonds, or any of their kin hadn't talked to him about just be the greatest. But guess what? It's going to come with some things in this country. Of course you knew that. And there's an old saying by Charles Barkley that fits in here about the 90s, right? I'm not a role model. I'm a 90s N-word. This immediately enrages the white community, the intense crowd we were discussing earlier today. And it shouldn't. The fact is, Barry Bonds, what he did on the baseball diamond is undeniable. For many years, we as Giants fans have had to sit here and try to quietly, while everybody just asterisk and bombarding us with negativity, and people don't even want to listen to us when we say that no matter where you were in the Bay, it didn't matter what you were doing, where you were in the Bay, if Barry Bonds came up to the plate, everybody stopped to look because that incredible speed of his hands, explosiveness of the power at the plate was a thing of great joy and beauty to watch. And it was so... Just do yourself a favor and go check out some highlights of Barry Bonds on our websites, Fansided or... a lot of us have had to be quiet Barry Bonds fans because of this situation. And only slowly, in the 10 years since he left the game, if you will, have we been able to even talk frankly about baseball, because we have to talk about everything else. I'm talking to guys like Reggie Jackson, if you're still voting against him. I'm talking to guys from that generation who are voting against him. End this foolishness, please. I'm begging you at this point. I've come to the point where I am never going to say something like this ever again. And here, it's 20 days are left in the year of 2020. And this little show that I'm making, which will be on every day, will have all kinds of topics. Probably not a lot of sports. So this is important to me. Why can't we get past this? The terminology cheating has become meaningless in our society. He's a cheater. He's a cheater. He's a cheater. They were cheaters. They were cheaters. They were cheaters. Who was the cheater here? The owner who just said, juice up whatever you want. The manager who looked the other way. Weren't they cheaters? We don't ban them. It would be interesting to see whether or not any of those, I haven't looked it up, but have any of those managers and coaches gotten into the Hall of Fame? We sit here and use the word cheat. Joe Biden's a cheater. George W. Bush was a cheater, 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 cheater. This word cheater means nothing because So few people look at the rules. So few people look at how we're going to decide things. They just want to pick a side, be loyal, and start screaming cheater out loud. And for a long time, you've done this to Barry Lamar Bonds. And I don't think it's right. I'm going to share with you some facts about Barry Bonds as the last thing we do today on the last 20 days of 2020 with MT Karthik. I am MTK on the MIC. Barry Bonds was born on July 24th of 1964 in Riverside, California. His father, Bobby Bonds, was a former Major League Baseball player and coach. His mother, Patricia Howard Bonds, is a significant figure in the baseball community in the Bay Area and beyond. Why don't you ask yourself that? Why don't you ask yourself about that? What do you think Patricia Howard Bonds thinks of your extremely loud negative attitude against her son? Given the facts, Barry fought hard to get clear of a lot of this stuff. Very wealthy white folks and corporations do far worse to get clear of things. And I'm certain many people in the Baseball Hall of Fame have done so as well. So this animosity within you, where does it reside? Is it racism? Is it anti-cheating? Is it something else that you're just gripping to for a reason we can't understand? You know, we just went through the 2020 season. What an incredibly ridiculous thing that was. Universal DH. Oh, God. I hate the DH. I hate the DH. Come on. Why can't you just leave our game? Leave the National League game alone. Just leave us alone. That's all we've ever asked. And every year you're shoving the DH down our face. And we had these crazy rules for extra innings. A guy's on second all of a sudden. What? We just did the craziest baseball season in the history of baseball seasons. Stats are about to go out the window anyway. There aren't going to ever be a 300-win pitcher because we're using openers and multiple middle relief. And the game is changing. The steroid era has been stamped quite brutally by all of you who refuse to put Barry Lamar Bonds into the Hall of Fame. It makes no sense. It is no longer a message. It is an indication of your stubbornness and what you're clinging to. And you better examine that before you cast your votes. I really wish you would do that. Barry Bonds attended Arizona State University from 1982 to 1985. He has broken multiple records in Major League Baseball, including winning 12 Silver Slugger awards, most career walks, most intentional walks. He made his Major League debut with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and in 93, he had his first season with us in the orange and black. In that same year, in 1993, Barry Bonds founded the Bonds Family Foundation, whose mission is to, quote, encourage, promote, and fund programs designed to improve the educational achievements, standard of living, and quality of life conditions for African American youth within the Bay Area community, close quote. Has Pete Rose ever done anything like that? The greatest contact hitter? Oh, he's a white guy, though. Are any of those facts related? In 94, he was the ESPY's Male Athlete of the Year. In 99, he was awarded the Philanthropist of the Year award by the National Conference on Black Philanthropy. In 2001, of course, he finished with 73 home runs, a new MLB record. And in 2002, Barry Bonds carried the torch for the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. Did you know that? He was voted a National League MVP for a record 7 times. He was voted National League MVP. He hit his 756th home run, surpassing Hank Aaron as the all-time home run leader on August 7th, 2007. And let me tell you, that was no picnic. There are many things you can learn about Barry Bonds in the next, I don't know, few days before you cast your vote. You can read about a lot of different things, but I think the important thing here is, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is not a Hall of Fame the way we're doing this. And I'm not speaking about Roger Clemens. I'm not speaking about Andy Pettit. I'm not speaking about any of these other people right now. I'm speaking about the guy that nobody can speak about for all the reasons we talked about. He was a diva. He kept us away. He did everything by himself. He's angry, but he's not those things. All that imagery is just a farce for us looking from the outside. Have you ever met Barry Lamar Bonds? Do you know anything about the good things he's done for people in the world, much less for his community as a black man in the game of baseball? These are the questions we have to ask ourselves, not just about Barry Bonds getting into the Hall of Fame, but what are we doing as Americans? The social media generation has generated this spit back and forth thing, this likes and jeers, and enough. That has nothing to do with who you are as a person. Grabbing an opinion and clinging to it is moronic. You need to educate yourself. Think about things deeper. And we need to release this thing, this toxicity that has come here in the year 2020 with the election. That's what we need to do. I'm going to cut this and leave it for the program, so we'll get off the Barry Bonds thing. But please vote for Barry Bonds. Put him in the Hall of Fame. It's the right thing to do. Finally, today we should talk about COVID. The vaccines are in the air. They are happening now. The vaccines in Europe, the Pfizer, the others are being distributed. I will, of course, be getting a vaccine. In fact, I will film myself getting a vaccine because we need to kill this lack of education about public health more practically. I was going to ask my lawyer to come with me. We'll film ourselves getting the vaccine. You must understand the science of a vaccine, it's a lipid protein that's carrying something that's going to go in your body and help you fight specifically this illness. And it also helps us not spread the illness. So these vaccines are a wonder. Now, the only reason this happened is because of the United States. Let's be very real about that. You don't have to say Trump. It's not about Trump. But we, the United States, things we can be proud of as Americans. We put millions, if not billions, behind. We told everybody we'll pay for it. We paid for the phase 3 trials for these people to have. We said, we'll pay for it so you guys can have large sample sizes. And they had 40,000 sample size, 35,000 sample size because the U.S. took away that cost. That's a cost that no other country would have just borne. Some could have, India could have, China could have, maybe Russia could. But, that's a pretty amazing thing we did as Americans. And so the result coming so quickly, even to this level of efficacy, is amazing. This is not one of those things like, oh, there's a new software out. Oh, I'll wait till my buddies all get it and see if there's any bugs. No, that's not what we're doing here. We're trying everything we can to create a larger immunotherapy in our entire society so that this illness doesn't cripple us. And we have failed miserably. Around the world, we are the worst. We are being mocked for our daily behaviors and the crazy dialogues we're having about public health, how to care for each other. I was thinking about how we have the Japanese, the Taiwanese, all these people are like, yeah, but that's because they're Asians, they're a lot more strict. They're willing to follow rules. They live on an island. All these excuses. And then I was thinking about Thailand. We don't talk about Thailand much. Thailand has controlled the virus. Thailand is like one of the tourist destinations of the world, right? Thailand famously has, prostitution, arguably drug use, things going on there that are associated with a kind of class of traveler in the Southeast Asian region, and it's not an island. In fact, it possesses islands, but how is Thailand so successful? Well, you just made the argument to me. Someone else made the argument to me that, see how the Japanese are so strict and their people, and the Koreans are also strict, and the Taiwanese, they're so strict and they'll charge you $3,500. And I said, well, Thailand's a relatively poor country. Maybe there's a philosophy thing going on here, right? And maybe the philosophy is you can either be super strict and authoritarian to end this disease, or you can be compassionate. Compassion is thinking, oh, my friends and neighbors are dying. My friends and neighbors are dying. I should be careful. I should be careful. We should all be careful. We should listen to the scientists telling us don't group and gather. We should be careful not to spread this thing. That's a caring mentality. That is not an authoritarian. You must wear masks. You must take this. You must take the vaccine. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing here in Thailand. It's caring, and that can be done anywhere. And under the current administration, we've dealt a blow to caring, and that's got to end. We've got to get that back. I'm disappointed in President-elect Joe Biden for a lot of reasons. The cabinet is starting to be one. Just the fact that we have this, it reminds me very much of the movie Idiocracy. If you haven't seen it, you should. It's funny. Judge's movie. It's a good one. But the president, who's an idiot, is there. Everybody's complaining that everything's there's problems, and he's getting ready to introduce how he's going to solve the problems with this character whose name is Not Sure. And they're like, "What are we going to do? We're all starving. Everything's suffering." And the president goes, "We got this guy, Not Sure." I love that. And I think I figured out who Joe Biden is. He's not sure. This guy, not sure. And we could use a little surety right now, and we could use some truly creative thinking. Going back and pulling the Clinton millionaires, going back and pulling all the Obama guys, going back and pulling the same people to run things, but having them be black and female and Latino. That's not diversity of thought. With 20 days left to go here in the year of 2020, this insanely, amazingly crazy year of 2020. I don't know what to do to try to tell people that this is not about being a Republican or a Democrat or about being progressive or we have now failed so utterly with this thing that we have to stop blaming people and pointing fingers, and we need to start caring for each other. That's really the only hope we have left, if I'm honest with you. So don't be someone who just doesn't say anything about this kind of stuff, folks. Don't be someone who never says a word.
Never said a word. You never said a word. It's all going to shit now. And you never say a word. The elections are fixed. The wars are endless. The surveillance is total. And you never say a word. You never said a word. You never said a word.
See you tomorrow.
It's all going to shit now. And you never say